Hi everybody, Craig here again. Just a few views of the world and the situation that we see ourselves in. Just on another road trip, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to say a few words. Been thinking about a few things wonder why is it that people tend to always repeat the same mistakes over and over again, and why don't we learn from other people's mistakes? And it would be so much easier if we could. And it occurs to me that I think humans generally, especially when you're young and a teenager and everything else, the last thing we want to do is listen to our adults, listen to our parents from advice and everything else. We want to make our own way in the world, if you like, and try and make our own mistakes, which is fine. The problem with that, if you carry that on for the rest of your life, you tend to spend a lot of your life repeating mistakes that can be easily learnt another way, which is by what other people have done in the past. And I see that governments and societies doing the same stuff all again. Is that if we look through history and look what's happened when certain things happen or evolve or develop in a certain way, the results are always the same. So it's amazing to me to find that people are still debating what we should do, when and how, when we actually know the results of, if we carry on the path that we are, what's going to happen. So it's interesting, and I was wondering from a human point of view, maybe we don't like to learn from other people. Maybe we feel that we have to learn it ourselves. Unless we learn it ourselves, it's not correct or it's not true to ourselves. Maybe, I don't know. But it's a shame, because can you imagine putting yourself back to being a teenager now, knowing what you know? Imagine the different world that we could have or we could live in or whatever. It'd be absolutely amazing. Whereas all the teenagers now, as you know, and we were all one once as well, all idealistic, don't have a clue how the world works, think they do, think they actually know more than the parents, as we all did in the past, but in reality know absolutely nothing. And it's weird how that kind of always tends to evolve, whether it's got something to do with us being human and we need that for our own self, I don't know. But what I think is going to happen in the future, as far as history repeating itself and where we're going now compared to what's happened in the past, which is the same thing, is that we've got every country in the world flat out printing all this money, because COVID-19 has been such an economic disaster for everybody, that and history shows us that when you go down that path, when you print to oblivion all this money that all these countries are doing, there's really only one result in the end. And if you'd like to think of it as though you're either an alcoholic or you're addicted to methadone or drugs or whatever, is that we all know in order to stop that or to get better, you must actually stop it completely. But of course, to stop it completely is painful. You have to go through a rebirth stage, a pain stage, to get to the other side, which is obviously going to be better. And it's the same thing with the governments all around the world now. In order to get through this economic disasters that we're all facing ourselves, we need to go through a lot of pain, and you can either make that short and swift and get out the other side and hopefully move on, or you can prolong it by printing all this money and artificially keeping it going, artificially giving people money that we don't have, this income that we're going to get for everybody. They're talking about everybody gets this normal income now around the world without even having to work, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's not going to end well. But, again, and this is nothing new too. If you go back through history, I mean, right back to Roman days, they were actually printing money then when the governments run out of money. And that actually caused, in the end, the fall of the Roman Empire. So the history's all there. It's just that for some reason we think that now we're smarter than maybe our ancestors were, for some reason, that we think that we know better or that can't happen this time. But of course, it always does. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what would happen if people actually, learn from the past and stop causing the same mistakes. But one good thing about this is that if you do look at history in the past, you can then see what's going to happen in the future. And that's quite neat, because I think one of the things that a lot of people really like to do and would like the ability to is to be able to, predict the future. Now, no one can predict it precisely, but certainly we can have a look at the past and see what is the likely outcome if we carry on the way we are. And so I find that fascinating, and I think that what's going to happen in the future as far as the money goes is that we're going to probably go through a bit of deflation initially, and then we'll go to a hyperinflation until the governments lose completely control of the money system, and then they will completely change the system like they did in 1971 or 1945 in Greenwood to a system which they have a lot more control of. Be it America has already passed a law now during the COVID-19 pandemic that they're going to legal to have a cryptocurrency come on board, a government-controlled cryptocurrency, and they want to go cashless and everything else. And I think everybody's going to follow that. And what will happen then is that your dollar will be changed to a crypto dollar, which is completely controlled by the government, so that they'll be able to control your spending, who you spend with, how much, your tax, everything. Negative interest rates suddenly become a good thing for them, because if you've got $100 in your bank account, next month you've only got 98, and so they'll say that's encouraging you to spend it to keep the economy going, which is just a way of them stealing money from you basically. So I think we're going to see that. I hope we don't see a war, but normally throughout history when you have a major economic change, monetary change, normally involves some sort of war. Hopefully this time the war might be just through currency and everything else, which would be nice. And so that's going to be really interesting. And I think also throughout history what happens is that societies in general go from a capitalist society to a socialist society, communist society if you like, and then back to a capitalist society again. And that you always tend to have that swing forward one way or the other. And that's because what happens is that, again, history has shown that there has never been a socialist or communist society that has succeeded, and yet we still try and do one, which is really weird. So you have capitalist society, and they are the most successful. They're not perfect, of course. A lot of people don't make it, and a lot of people end up on the waste heap, if you like, but they're certainly the best we've got. And after a while people complain about how many people get left behind, and so then they want to go more socialist, which is where we are now, and they think everybody should be treated equally and everybody should have the same equal outcome, which obviously is not going to happen, until eventually that all goes to communist, and then that'll you get a regime coming in to do all that, and then people finally revote against that, kick that out, and we go back to capitalist again. So that's those swings take hundreds of years, of course, to go through. But that's, again, it's always happened in the past. So same type of thing, really. So interesting how it all works, and so it'll be interesting to see where all that goes from. And just remember too that I've been having an interesting conversation with a friend of mine about where we're all at with masks and COVID-19 and what we should be doing and not. And just to make sure that I think that everybody should have a discussion about stuff, have opinions on stuff. If someone's opinion varies from your own, that's fine. We're all allowed to have different opinions, as long as we don't get emotional about it and try and get abusive or anything like that. Opinions are good. Free speech is the best. Trying to stop speech or stop free speech is a huge problem. And of course what's happening at the moment is that you can just see it, governments coming out and just trying to put their little nails in everywhere to stop false news or fake media or hate speech or all that kind of stuff. And then I was trying to explain to my friend, it's not so much that why some of that sounds good on paper, it's who decides what is good and what is not, who decides what is false news, who decides what's hateful speech. And generally what happens in the end is you get people that you would not want to decide that end up deciding it, and that's when things all go totally wrong. So what starts out to be a good idea, in reality just doesn't work at all. So we just have to be wary of that. You'll see it slowly coming in. You'll see slowly governments trying to take more and more control as they get used to all this control they're getting from COVID-19, and they ain't going to let it go in a hurry, because that's what governments do. Once they get control, they ain't going to let it go. So we've got all the surveillance going on. They can come into your house at any time, day or night, without a warrant, all that kind of stuff. That's not going to stop. It's just going to get worse until it finally gets too much, it gets overthrown. But how long that is away, I think it's a long time. This is only the start of the small stuff. It's going to get a lot worse. But anyway, so let me know what you think. Subscribe, like, and we'll just see where we're going from here. I'm hopefully going to be driving through some snow soon, so that should be good. Stop and have a snowball fight, that should be awesome. All right, enjoy your day, and we'll catch up with you next time. Bye.